I think it's funny sometimes how carried away fans can get with sports, how people overreact to things in the moment. Now, I'm not knocking it. I mean, it's a good thing, I think. That's what we as fans are supposed to do. But the media, on the other hand, is supposed to be objective. Yeah, there's a lot of people in the media that overreact to situations just as much, if not more, than the fans do. Over a week ago, Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers were kind of being written off. Luka Doncic had just made that unbelievable game-winning shot in Game 4. Series was tied 2-2 with the Clippers playing uninspired basketball the first 4 games of that series. I explained to you guys when all that was going on why it was so important to not get lost in the moment, that the Clippers were going to win that series. And what happened? They dominated the next 2 games. Well, here we are again, a little over a week later, and we're kind of in a similar situation. The Denver Nuggets closed out the first round Tuesday night in an excellent Game 7 win against the Jazz. That was an unbelievable game. Jamal Murray was unstoppable throughout that series, especially the last 3 or 4 games. Luka Doncic went from star to superstar with 1 game-winning shot. Jamal Murray went from star to superstar with 3 straight unbelievable playoff performances. For the first time in his career, he is finally getting the recognition that he deserves. The dude is a great player. Then I turned my radio on yesterday morning to hear Nick Wright on Fox Sports 1 predict that the Nuggets were actually going to upset the Clippers in the second round. Now, in his defense, to be fair, he has said for a while that he had Denver making it to the Western Conference Finals. So he is being consistent, if nothing else, even though he is clearly misguided. Jamal Murray and the Denver Nuggets, they're a nice story. They're a good team. But they have no chance of beating the Clippers in the second round. 0. None. This series will be over in 5 games. I want to actually predict a sweep, but with the Clippers' tendency to kind of let off the gas when they get up a game or 2, I'm going to give Denver at least 1 win. The Clippers have a major advantage at the start of this series, and that's rest. They closed out against Dallas on Sunday. They're coming into the second round with 3+ days of rest, which hopefully is enough time for Patrick Beverley to get healthy, because they are going to need him in this series against Denver. Doc Rivers hasn't really given much information on Patrick Beverley's status. At least he hadn't at the time of this recording, but I would expect Beverley to be in the lineup Game 1. The Nuggets, on the other hand, they are coming off an emotional 7-game series in which Jamal Murray played heavy minutes the last 4 games. He was exhausted after Game 7, which is to be expected. But even he mentioned the quick turnaround, only getting 1 day off before having to hit the court again against one of the best teams in the NBA. Actually, I think they're the best team in the NBA. And now that I think of it, Jamal Murray didn't mention that. He was shocked when Scott Van Pelt brought it up in his post-game interview about them having to turn around, rest 1 day, and play again on Thursday night. We just saw something similar with Dame Lillard and the Blazers. The last 4 or 5 games of the regular season, they're rolling. Dame playing heavy minutes just to try to get into the playoffs. They're riding an emotional high. Was even able to ride that momentum to a win in Game 1. People were predicting a Portland upset over the Lakers. Not everybody, but there were some out there, Charles Barkley namely, that were predicting the Blazers to upset the Lakers. And then what happened? Dame tired out. The Blazers as a team tired out. The emotions subsided. They came back to reality. The talent eventually took over, and they got dominated the final 4 games of that series. The Nuggets right now are riding a similar emotional high, becoming only the 12th team to come back from a 3-1 deficit to win a playoff series. But the last couple of times that's happened, the results in the next round haven't been good. The Rockets back in 2015, they came back from down 3-1 to beat the Lakers in the second round. ended up losing 4-1 in the West Finals to Golden State. And speaking of the Warriors, very next year, they came back from down 3-1 to beat Oklahoma City in the Western Conference Finals. Then gave up their own 3-1 series lead in the NBA Finals to LeBron James and the Cavs. Now, does that mean that the Nuggets are automatically going to lose this series? No, it's just an interesting side note. The Nuggets are going to lose this series because they are going up against a far superior team. There isn't a deeper team in the NBA than the LA Clippers. Jamal Murray's a great player, and I realize that he is the star of this Denver team. But if I'm Doc Rivers, if I'm a Clippers fan, I'm not too concerned about Jamal Murray. Two of his worst games of the season, scoring-wise at least, came against the Clippers. He has struggled against them all season, and I'm not counting their one win that happened back in January because the Clippers weren't at full strength in that game. The Clippers have plenty of answers for Jamal Murray. Whereas against Utah, he was mainly guarded by Royce O'Neal, sometimes Donovan Mitchell, who's not a great defender. We saw in Game 7 how Donovan Mitchell was exhausted late in the game from expending so much energy on offense during that comeback in the second half and guarding Jamal Murray. He was spent at the end of the game. That is not going to happen against the Clippers. They just have too many guys that can guard Jamal Murray. He'll mainly be guarded by Patrick Beverley, who was one of the best defensive point guards in the NBA. If Patrick Beverley gets tired, throw Kawhi Leonard at him or Paul George. They've got two of the best wing defenders in the league. Now, I'm not saying that the barrage of Clippers defenders is going to hold Jamal Murray to 10 points a game. What I am saying is they are deep enough and have enough versatile defenders to be able to contain him, stop him from going off for 40, 50 points like he did against Utah. The only place that the Clippers are vulnerable against Denver is in the paint. They have absolutely no answer for Nikola Jokic. Zubac for the Clippers. He's a decent defender, but we just watched Jokic pretty much dominate Rudy Gobert, who's a two-time Defensive Player of the Year. He shot 62% with 26 points a game against the best big defender in the NBA. Zubac is not going to be a problem, but is Jokic going to be enough to beat the Clippers in this series? Because outside of that, Denver is overmatched. They were average defensively all season, and right now they're the worst defensive team in the playoffs. Yes, they held the Jazz to 78 points in Game 7. I realize that. I attribute some of that to it being a Game 7. A lot of times, Game 7s are sloppy offensively, and the Jazz were an exhausted team. Denver holding them to 78 points, that was an outlier. This is not a great team defensively. The Nuggets just don't have an answer for Kawhi Leonard, which, to be fair, it seems like no one in the NBA has an answer for Kawhi Leonard. The Nuggets, they don't have an answer for Paul George. The Clippers have so many players that can beat you. I haven't even mentioned guys like Lou Williams or Marcus Morris. Marcus Morris, to me, is a difference maker. He's one of those players that every championship team needs. The guy that plays dirty. The guy that's willing to get the other team's star player off of his game. Talk trash to him. Just like he did with Luka in Game 6. The guy who's willing to pick up the technical fouls, make the tough plays. Marcus Morris is not a big name, but he is critical to this Clippers team. He's got a 15.8 net rating in the playoffs. He is a part of 5 of 6 of the Clippers' most played rotations that is averaging an unbelievable 21.7 net rating in the playoffs. I read a lot of Denver Nuggets sites when I was researching this series. It seemed like each preview article that I read from a Nuggets perspective, they all had a similar notion to them. If Jamal Murray can continue to be a superstar, Denver can win this series. If Jokic dominates in the paint, we can win. Well, he's going to dominate in the paint, and the Nuggets still aren't going to win this series. If Jeremy Grant and Torrey Craig play great one-on-one defense, the Nuggets can win. If Michael Porter Jr. can play to his potential, Denver can win. It was a whole lot of what-ifs. A lot of what-ifs. It reminded me of what I was reading before Game 1 between the Blazers and the Lakers. Portland sites were full of the same kind of what-ifs. It's the exact opposite for the Clippers coming into this series. There are no what-if situations for them to win. Their only what-ifs are, if Kawhi Leonard gets hurt, we're screwed. Or, if Kawhi has a bad game, we could be in trouble. The thing is, Kawhi Leonard doesn't have bad games in the playoffs. You've got to go all the way back to the NBA Finals in 2014 to find his last bad playoff game. For the Clippers, it's basically, we have Kawhi Leonard, we're winning this series. That's it. It's as simple as that. The Nuggets have been a nice story. Jamal Murray has cemented his superstar status in the NBA. They gave us an entertaining first-round series. But they can go ahead and book those plane tickets home. Because this time next week, that's where they're going to be headed. I've got the Clippers winning this series in 5 games. All right, that's all for today. Hit that like and subscribe button. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Leave me a comment in the section below. Do you think that Denver is going to pull the upset here in this series? Or are the Clippers going to be too much for them? Let me know your thoughts. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Have any questions, a topic you'd like me to discuss? You can email me at BTLKC84@gmail.com. I'll see you guys next time.